Alright, hi everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm Steve, or Blink, and today I thought I would go through the games coming out kind of in the next 6 months of 2019 that I'm looking forward to picking up and playing. And so I have a list here that I put together, and it's all games that have a release date or pretty close to a release date announced through September. And I thought I would just talk about the ones I'm interested in picking up and why I plan on picking them up. This doesn't go all the way through the end of the year, so there's plenty of games that are going to come out in the holiday season that I don't have included here. I thought I could kind of halfway through the year touch back with everybody and make another one of these videos that stretches through to the rest of the through the holiday season. And so it also doesn't include things that are coming out in 2019 but don't have a definite release date. Stuff that's likely to come out in the holiday season. So I'm thinking things like the Link's Awakening remake that was announced. That'll show up in the next video that I make a couple months from now. But yeah, we've got a pretty decent list here. About 15 games or so that I'm planning on picking up in some form through September, which is kind of scary. I mean, that's a pretty good amount of games, and this is only the ones that I know about right now. This doesn't even include stuff that I haven't discovered yet or that hasn't been announced. So yeah, I guess let's just get right into the list and start talking through some of these games. The first one, and probably the big one, is going to be Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. In fact, hopefully I get this video out before Sekiro comes out. But that's on the 22nd of March, and I'm really looking forward to Sekiro. I, like most people, am a pretty big fan of the Dark Souls games. I like Dark Souls 1, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne in particular. But I was a fan of Dark Souls 2 and 3. And, I mean, another game From Software, it's pretty hard to not get excited about that. I've done a good job on this one of keeping myself pretty spoiler-free. I know that it's sort of maybe a blend of Dark Souls meets Tenchu. I don't think it's going to be quite as similar to Dark Souls as, like, Bloodborne was. But that's okay. I have faith in From Software as a developer to put together an interesting game, even if it's not just a reskin of the Souls gameplay and universe, but put into kind of this more ninja-themed game. So yeah, Sekiro is definitely kind of the big game in March that I'm looking forward to. And then also right around that same time, don't think I'll pick it up right at the time that Sekiro comes out, because I'll be putting time into Sekiro, but hopefully soon after. There's a game that wasn't on my radar until recently called The Sinking City, which seems to be a sort of cosmic horror, Cthulhu, Lovecraftian horror game that takes place in a city that I think is flooding or flooded. I don't know too much about the setting there, but I do know that it looks like some pretty traditional survival horror type gameplay, maybe not quite as graphic or anything, but then again, it's hard to tell until you start playing the game. And yeah, I just think that type of game has a lot of room left to be explored. I mean, I know there are a lot of Cthulhu games, and there's a lot of varying Lovecraft-style stories out there. But, I mean, the last one I can think of that I really sunk my teeth into was Call of Cthulhu on the original Xbox. And so I'm kind of hoping that this is going to be sort of a follow-up to that. Something that lives in the same lineage or shares some of the same DNA. Also in March, the very end of March coming out, is Yoshi's Crafted World. I love the Yoshi platformers, and I loved Kirby's Epic Yarn. So Kirby's Epic Yarn I played through and I loved, and Yoshi's Woolly World I played through co-op with a friend of mine, and both of those were just absolute blasts. Neither of them quite live up to Yoshi's Island, which I think is probably one of the better platformers that's ever been made. But I think that these games do a really good job of blending some of the feel of that gameplay with this really charming, interesting visual style. And everything I've seen on Yoshi's Crafted World, with like the inverting plane mechanics where you kind of flip the level around and start playing it from the opposite side or along the opposite axis as if it was a diorama that you were switching to the other side of. That all seems really cool to me. It seems like they're putting in a lot of effort into the level design there, and it's something that I know will just put me in a good mood to play. So I'll definitely be picking that up at the end of March. And the one other game in March that I'm interested in picking up, although I learned just recently that I don't think it's getting a physical edition here in the United States, is Chocobo's Mystery Dungeon Everybody, which is a remake of the Chocobo Dungeon game on the Wii, if I'm not mistaken. And I never played that one. I do have it, and I always intended to get around to it. It just hadn't kind of bubbled up to the surface of the backlog yet. And so this will be a really good opportunity to finally sink my teeth into it, I think, with it being updated and looking modern and clean, and hopefully having some enhancements and kind of quality of life features built into it. I've always heard that is a really good introduction roguelike for people. So I'm hoping it won't be too easy, because I do already enjoy a good number of roguelikes. But I don't know, I can't imagine that I won't enjoy it. Even just seeing all the different Final Fantasy characters and enemies and stuff in a new context should be fun. So not too sure what I'll do, because I do like to get stuff physically when I can. I think there is a version that you can import that's up on Play Asia right now. That's an Asian version with English subtitles. So I'll kind of maybe bide my time a little bit to see if any rumors surface of a US release. But at this point, it doesn't look like there's going to be a non-digital US release. So may pick it up. I'm also not sure what price point it's releasing at, so I might get it digitally when it comes out and then later pick up a physical copy if I liked it. Not too sure. April, there's a couple of good games coming out in April that I'm looking forward to. The first one is Box Boy plus Box Girl, which was announced at the most recent Nintendo Direct that they just had. And I was a huge fan of the original Box Boy on the 3DS. On the eShop is just this interesting kind of puzzle platformer, simple, but a ton of charm and clean, easy to follow, visually appealing. It was just like good distilled fun gameplay. And I didn't play the follow-ups to that. I think there were like 2 follow-ups to the original Box Boy. And this, I think, is a trilogy, or it's a set of all of those together. So it coming to the Switch and having co-op with Box Girl is a perfect opportunity for me to pick it up and for me and my partner to play through it together. So yeah, I'm definitely going to pick up Box Boy Box Girl. And then the other game in April, which is the one I'm definitely the most excited for, is Super Meat Boy Forever. It doesn't have a release date yet, as far as I know. It's just in the April 2019 window. But this is the follow-up, obviously, to Super Meat Boy, which is one of my all-time favorite games. Easily one of my top 10 games of all time. When that game came out, I played it over and over and over again. I got everything you could get in the game. I unlocked all the characters. I got all the bandages. I beat all of the different light world. I beat the dark world. Did a bunch of user levels. Got A+, A+ times on all the levels, stuff like that. I even spent a period of time speedrunning that game, learning to speedrun the game, and I was able to get through it in about 21, 22 minutes, which was decent-ish at the time that I played. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that series, and I'm really looking forward to Super Meat Boy Forever. It seems like it's going to be more of the design philosophy around Super Meat Boy, but this one is an endless runner. I don't think that's really going to change things as much as some people think it's going to. I think you can still do a lot of the same type of level design that was done in Super Meat Boy as an endless runner. You're still going to have tricky jumps. You're still going to be hopping off of walls and dodging buzz saws and stuff like that. It's just a matter of not panicking as you're constantly moving through. There'll be a little bit less of the opportunity to sit down and think about your jumps before you make them, which honestly adds a new level of adrenaline to this already existing difficult game. So definitely my most anticipated title in April, one of my most anticipated titles in all of 2019. I hope that the fact that we haven't heard a release date isn't indicative of the fact that it's going to slip, but nothing I've heard has suggested that so far. So I will be picking that up whenever it comes out in April. May, there's 2 games that I'm interested in. This one's kind of we'll see how things pan out. And that one's Rage 2, which is coming out on the 14th of May. And Rage 2 is just kind of like, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I didn't play the first Rage, and I don't tend to pick up a lot of sort of the big AAA release shooters, but the little bit I've seen about Rage 2, some of the key art and some of the designs and stuff, and a little bit of what I've heard from previews of the game and some podcasts and stuff that have seen some footage or maybe even gotten their hands on it. It seems like it has the potential to be pretty cool. Feels like for the last maybe 10 years even at this point, I've sort of bounced off of the big budget AAA shooter. And so, not that this is going to be the one to get me back into those types of games, but I do want to consider giving it a shot. It does seem like it could be pretty cool. But the other game in May that I'm really looking forward to is Team Sonic Racing, which is coming out on the 21st, I believe. And this is the follow-up to... Well, I don't know if it is the same development team, but it is in the same line as the Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing games, which I think have probably been the only truly excellent kart racing game that have come out since to match Mario Kart, basically. Outside of Mario Kart, the last 10 years or so, I think Team Sonic Racing has the potential to be the next big thing. I loved Sega and Sonic All-Stars Racing back when it came out on the 360. I didn't play it right when it came out, but when I did check it out, I was really impressed with it. And so I'm optimistic that Team Sonic Racing will be more of that. And interestingly enough, when we move into June, we have another racing game coming out, which is Crash Team Racing, the remake that they announced for Crash Team Racing. So between Team Sonic Racing and Crash Team Racing in June, it's going to be a good month for kart racers, and should be interesting to see how this new Sonic game compares to a remake of this old Crash racing game. So I'll definitely be checking both of those out. Another game coming out in June at the very beginning is Persona Q2. If I'm being honest, I didn't really play a ton of the first Persona Q. I only played a bit of it and saw some friends play it and stuff like that. What I'm really interested in with Persona Q2 is that it looks like it could potentially be the last physically released 3DS game. I think as of right now, it's the last announced 3DS game. And so I think I want to pick it up, if for no other reason, just as sort of like a send-off and a good capper to the end of the 3DS's life. 3DS is a system that I think knocked it out of the park. I mean, the DS is my all-time favorite handheld, and the 3DS was a really worthy successor to that. I mean, you can see I have a decent 3DS library right there, and there's still tons of games that I want to pick up for it that I probably should start picking up now that they're cheap and they're only going to get harder to come by as the system's life cycle ends. But I think I will pick that up as just like a way of saying goodbye to the 3DS. And then the big game in June that I'm really looking forward to is Judgment. So this is the next game from the studio that did the Yakuza games. And it looks like a little bit of Yakuza mixed with a little bit of Ace Attorney, sort of a investigation style crime thriller or something like that. And so as a recent-ish Yakuza convert, I'm definitely looking forward to picking this up, and I do want to support it right out of the gate when it comes out to show that studio does good work that I enjoy. Everything I've seen in terms of the previews makes it look like it'll be fun. The big thing, though, that I'm worried about is just recently a story came out that in Japan, one of the voice actors was charged for, I think, drug possession, or there was some scandal involving one of the voice actors using drugs, which is apparently a pretty big deal in Japan. And so that game got pulled from shelves. I think it's not available for digital download. Essentially, they just yanked the game out so that this guy's work wouldn't be out there in the public, which seems pretty dramatic, but I guess is fairly commonplace considering how severe drug charges can be in Japan. And what makes me worried is that then Sega won't bring it out over here. There's a lot of uncertainty around whether or not they'll just remove that guy's character from the game. I'm not sure how important he is to the story or not. Whether or not they'll find another voice actor or patch out his lines in some way, or if they'll just release it here as is. But I'm really hoping the Judgment still makes it over, because that's like my summer game that I'm looking forward to picking up. So that one I will keep my fingers crossed and we'll see what happens. July, couple of games. First one I think a lot of people are excited for is Fire Emblem Three Houses. I will be picking this up right when it comes out. I am a Fire Emblem fan. I've played all the more recent Fire Emblems that have come out. Really since, I think I've played pretty much all of them since the Game Boy Advance ones, now that I think about it. But the thing about Fire Emblem Three Houses that I'm a little bit worried on is that it's taking place in a military academy or in a military school. And that tends not to be a setting that I super love. I think back to Valkyria Chronicles, which was one of my all-time favorite games. I loved the first Valkyria Chronicles. When that went onto the PSP and went to a military school in Valkyria Chronicles 2, I really didn't like it. I felt like the story suffered as a result, and I don't always feel like that setting has a lot of opportunity for interesting story development. You tend to get pretty tropey characters that I don't know. It seems like those games tend to spin their wheels a little bit when they're set inside of military schools. Maybe I'm just being too hard on it because Valkyria Chronicles 2 was a little bit of a disappointment. But I'll still check it out. We'll still see how it is. there hasn't been a bad Fire Emblem game, so I'm pretty encouraged that it'll still be pretty good. But when I saw this most recent direct and I saw that, I was a little bit unsure. But we'll pick that up. And the other one is Dragon Quest Builders 2 in July. This comes out on July 12th. I have not played the first Dragon Quest Builders, but I do plan on getting this one because it has co-op. And a friend of mine who does do some YouTube videos, his name is Nornsy, Nornsy. He is a huge Dragon Quest Builders fan and wants to play through this one together. So I think when that game comes out, we'll have him up for a weekend, and he and I will just sit down and play through a ton of this game. I don't really get into the crafting side of those games, or at least I don't think I will. I'm not... Minecraft doesn't really do much for me, and I've never really gotten super addicted to one of the games where you're building and surviving, stuff like that. But I do love Dragon Quest, and I think playing with him will be a good introduction to the series. And I watched him play a bit of the first one, and it did seem like it had a good balance of action to those building mechanics. So I'll give that one a shot. Whew. 3 games left. All right, in August, not much to say on it, but in the 27th of August is, I believe, the current release date for Shenmue 3. My history with Shenmue is that I played Shenmue 1 a couple years after it came out on Dreamcast, and I played Shenmue 2 probably 4 or 5 years ago now on Xbox. Relatively recent, definitely not when it first came out. I don't have the nostalgia for Shenmue that a lot of people do. I think 2 was better than the original one, which I think is not usually how people feel. But there's too much hype built around Shenmue 3 to not be a little bit interested. I didn't back the Kickstarter or anything, but I think when the game does release, I'll pick it up because fans have been waiting so long for this game. There's so much buildup, so much anticipation. I just kind of have to see where they take the series next. And I mean, 2 did sort of end on like a weird cliffhanger, so if anything else, I'm interested to see how the story from Shenmue 2 progresses into Shenmue 3. And then a recent addition to this list, and definitely my August pick for most exciting, is Astral Chain, which is a character action game that was announced in the most recent Nintendo Direct. That is the follow-up game by Platinum Games. So it looks like it's kind of got this cyber police kind of neo-noir city type style. That's not a good way to describe it. So the last game in August and my biggest pick for that month is Astral Chain, which is the next game that Platinum Games is coming out with. Looks like a character action game that is taking place in kind of this neon-y, futuristic anime city, sort of a cel-shaded graphical style. And yeah, I mean, we just saw the one trailer. I haven't looked up any gameplay if there's any out there or anything like that, but it is a Platinum Studios game. I have confidence in Platinum Studios. Typically, the games that they put out that aren't licensed games are pretty good. And so I'm willing to give this one a shot for sure. One of my favorite studios, sort of not surprise dropping a game, but announcing a game only like 4 or 5 months before it actually comes out is really cool, and definitely helped out to fill that section of the year there. I'm really looking forward to that one. And the last game in September, this is where I'll end the list because this is kind of where I stopped getting good definitive release dates, is Catherine Full Body. Catherine is one of my all-time favorites. I love the gameplay and the story in Catherine. I thought that the gameplay was really well done. The puzzles were intelligent and had a great difficulty to them. It had a good sense of urgency combined with problem solving. You had to think hard, but you also had to do it quick. And I thought that the story did a great job of telling a relatively adult story about pretty real feeling characters, minus the story's spin that it goes on towards the end of the game. But I love that game. Leah, my partner, is a huge fan. It's one of her all-time favorite games ever. So we will definitely be buying this remake, checking out the storyline for the third girl that they're adding. I think her name is Rin. Catherine with a Q, but they call her Rin. So yeah, that I couldn't be more excited for that game. I already have the collector's edition on pre-order, and as soon as that game comes out, probably Leah will play through it, and then I'll play through it after her. But that game will definitely be going through its paces as soon as it comes out here in our house. So yeah, that is the list of games that I'm definitely planning on getting for one reason or another, all the way through September of 2019. So we'll make another video as we get closer to the end of the year to sort of highlight through the holiday season and into the end of December. But hopefully there's some stuff in there that you're looking forward to picking up. Definitely tell me anything that you are planning to pick up that I didn't put on this list, because I'm sure there's stuff that I'm interested in that I forgot, and I'm sure that there's stuff that I just don't know about yet. So feel free to let me know. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. And if you want to see more talk about games, stop back to the channel. Yeah, thanks everybody. Take care.